Commissioner, do police still arrest criminals in New Zealand?
Last year, we seized more firearms. We recovered more and restrained more assets from organised crime. And we laid more charges for dealing, importation and manufacture of methamphetamine and other drugs than we did in the year before, even with the disruption of COVID.
It isn't that because there's so much more there, and you wouldn't even give me a straight answer to the rise of gangs in this country.
It has nothing to do with there being more there. It is to do with the focus that we're putting on it. Someone can't be arrested for those offences unless we actively investigate them. They don't come.
Well, I'll tell you why I ask, because actually I can just go in the very recent past, and by the way, I could do this in any electorate around the country. In my electorate, I've had shopkeepers who've been beaten up. I've had drug deals in multiple parts of the city where complainants have come to me because they've seen them. I've had a situation at the Mount Tay Street in Marine Parade where some 70, 80 headhunters have taken up the road, over the road. There've been multiple police complaints in all of those cases, and not on a single occasion did the police come. By the way, in the last 24 hours, I've had a guy in Christchurch, Warwick, St Albans, were again, in that case, it was a different gang, the Black Power, who took over the road. Police didn't come. I mean, what's changed in the last few years? I have no doubt several years ago, police would not only have attended, but arrests would have been made.
We have always had problems with gangs and gang crime in this country. We are concerned by the increase in gang violence, and that's why we have launched Operation Tōwhiro. Our response to crime and the things you're mentioning is as focused as it's ever been, and the evidence shows that we are dealing with more than we've ever dealt with, and we're doing so.
Let's be clear here. Operation Tōwhiro doesn't apply a single new resource, not a single new police officer, no money, no nothing.
I have 10,000 officers available to do the work that we need to do in our communities.
What's your annual report mean when you say we have the authority to arrest, but we know that doing so is not always the most effective way of addressing crime and harm?
What you're referring to there is the concept of policing by consent and some of the basic principles that were given to us, not recently, but in 1829, when Sir Robert Peel established modern policing that we have in this country. It has never been a principle in law or otherwise that police must arrest and prosecute for every offence. We need to make sure that our response is appropriate, and it is.
But isn't the issue that the arrests just aren't happening? I mean, I'm not imagining it. You must surely know what I'm talking about when I tell you about big gang presences all over the country, creating mayhem, intimidating, holding up roads, and your police don't attend. It's like you're talking a different language to me. You say it's all great, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. That is not the lived experience anywhere in New Zealand at the moment. I mean, do you accept that there's something in what I'm saying?
I don't accept that what you're suggesting, that police are not very proactively dealing with all of these issues. I do accept that there's been an escalation in gang activity and presence, particularly as between those groups. Much of that has been driven by the prevalence of Australian returned offenders coming into those groups and
there are about 40 of several thousand gang members.
What those people have done...
You're just playing with statistics.
What those people have done is lead to the establishment of new groups like the Bandidos, like the Mongols, like the Rebels, which has disrupted an existing set of relationships that have led to some relative peace between. So
tell me this, what does policing by consent mean when Mongols take over a road and are there? Because it seems to me, I'm just trying to be straight with you, what it actually means is you don't show up.
We will deal with criminal offences when they're reported, and we'll deal with them appropriately. That has got nothing to do with policing by consent.
Well, no, I've got two very brief areas. If I just cover them, and then I promise you we've still got significant time.
Well, they are a question.
Well, they're questions, all right. We've talked about policing by consent. You have in your annual report your core legislative functions: keeping the peace, maintaining public safety, law enforcement, crime prevention. Then you say under that, not as one of your legislative functions, while our mandate is found in legislation, we are clear as an organisation that to be effective requires us to police with the consent of the communities. I mean, I understand that this is a long-term concept, but it does seem, doesn't it? And again, I'm just trying to be straight with you. You've really changed the game here. You've tipped the balance very strongly in favour of this concept of consent and taking everyone with you. And I put it to you, that just doesn't actually work when you're dealing with headhunters and mongrels.
Let me tell you what policing by consent is. When we look overseas and we see the violent clashes that have occurred between police and ordinary citizens over COVID lockdowns, over issues like Black Lives Matter, that's what it looks like when the police lose the consent of their community. It has nothing to do...
They're safer in Australia than they are in New Zealand.
It has nothing to do with whether or not we will deal with gangs and gang offences. As I have said to you, we have put more pressure on gangs, taken more assets, taken more guns in the last year than we have at any time in our history.
Well, it seems to me you've come along and you've tailored that message, because you know what I've said in the media, when the reality is your annual report is you don't talk about any of that stuff. It's all the soft stuff, the nice stuff. It's just not there